Hey, what's going on, everybody? Bauer Brown here. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. In the video that I have for you guys today, we're going to be creating a flat blank map. Now, I know before you get all up in arms and you get your panties in a bunch, we have been through this before. Yes, I know I've made one of these videos, but I did a little bit differently. Okay, that video was meant to be part of a tutorial series, and I stretched that out across many videos. All right, so I kind of structured my lesson plans around that video, or vice versa, you know, making the map around those lesson plans. Okay, so normally I would do this a little bit differently and just go from start to finish, which is what we're going to do here. Okay, so now if you're new to the channel and you're just joining us, we are going to be doing this with a 2-kilometer map. That's what we're going to be creating, but don't get too excited, because no matter what map you're trying to create, whether it's a 4-kilometer or it's an 8 or 16-kilometer, it all starts at the same place, which is right here, creating a 2-kilometer map. Okay, so you create that 2-kilometer, and then once you're done, you just scale up from there to the size that you want. Everyone is done that way. Okay, so every single one. All right, so now that we got that out of the way, with that being said, let's jump into this and get started on making our map. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is open up the Giants editor. All right, and you don't have to open it up to anything in particular. Just open the editor on its own. That is just fine. Okay, so once you got that open, I want you to go up here onto the left-hand side of your screen, go up to File, go down to New Mod from Game. All right, you don't have to save changes there. Okay, unless you have something open, then by all means save it. Okay, and then you give it a second or two, and there's a box will pop up here that says a new mod from game. I'll show you in just 1 second. Alrighty, at the very top of that box, you see where it says item. You have a like a drag down list there. Now, the top 3 items in that list is mod map Alpine, French, and US. Okay, those are the base game maps, right? So when you play the Farm Sim 22 series, the 3 base games you get to choose from. There's a 4th one now, but that's what they're referring to there. Okay, so what they're going to do is they're going to start you out with basically a duplicate of that map. Right, looks pretty much exactly the same. All right, so the choice is going to be yours on this one. You have a decision to make which one you want to start out with. Okay, so I'll tell you the main differences between these 3, besides, you know, layout and stuff like that, is what you need to be concerned about are the ground textures are going to be different from one map to the other, and your foliages are going to be a little bit different from one map to the other. Okay, so don't feel like once you pick one of these that you're locked into it and okay, you're just stuck with those ground textures, because they are completely customizable. You know, I've done videos on this about adding new textures into your map and you know, things like that. So like I said, pick the one that you think you might want. And, you know, don't fret, because, you know, you can change any number of things as far as customizing these maps as you go along. So I'm going to pick the mod map US, because that's the one, you know, that I always pick. And I don't know, I'm just going to go with that one. So you want to go ahead and click OK. And it's going to pop up with another box here that says working directory. Okay, so now in this working directory, the default location is document myfs22 mods, okay? And it's going to create a map inside of there called mod map US or French Alpine, depending on which one you choose. All right, now if you intend on testing this in game, or if this is, you know, your main project, your primary project, okay, you want to create this in your mod or your save game folder, okay? And just put that in your mods directory, right? And that's the same directory that you put any other mod that you would download, you know, from the internet, you know, any other map or mod, anything like that, okay? And if you need to see really quickly, I can get you over there and I can show you. This is my farming simulator folder right here. And if you look here, here's all my save games and stuff like that. Okay, that's what it should look like. All right, and this is under Documents My Games Farming Simulator 2022. And here is the mods folder that I was talking about. That's where it will go if you plan on testing it in game or doing anything like that. Okay, so just go ahead and click OK. Give it a couple of minutes to go through and do its thing. Now, it generally doesn't take too long depending on the speed of your system. Like I said, there's a lot of files that need to be copied over, so just give it a minute or two, and before you know it, everything will be done. Okay, great. Now that that is out of the way, you should see something pretty similar to what I have here, depending on which map you picked. And at this point, we have successfully created a new mod from game. Okay. All right. So from here, now, we're not going to be keeping anything. We're going to basically get rid of everything that you see there. Everything. Okay, that's pretty much what makes a blank map, is we're going to chuck it all, okay? All right, so we're not going to waste any time with this. Let's get started. All of the items, now there are a few items that you're going to keep, okay? And I'll show you which ones those are going to be, because they will be useful to you later down the road. When you reuse this is going to be a template. Okay, so when you save this, you're going to have just a flat blank map, and you'll use that as a template. So for your next project, what you'll do is you'll just copy this over. You'll create a copy of this, and that'll be your new project. Okay, so at that point, you'll want to import all of the objects that you would like, in your new map. All right, but there are certain things that are going to come in handy when starting your new map, and we're going to keep those particular items. Now, feel free as we go along that if you see something that you think you would like to save, then by all means go ahead and save it. I typically get rid of everything just because it gets to be in the way, and every map is different. You don't use the same items on every single map. It just tends to be different every time. Okay, so what I sometimes do, or actually often, is on my blank maps is I'll go in and I'll import different textures into the map, so I have them at my disposal, when I want to start a new project, or any other items that I feel like I might use all of the time on new maps, whether they're deco objects or anything like that. I will go ahead and I will insert those into the map. And in this way, when I make a duplicate and I start my new project, everything's already in place and I'm ready to go. Okay, so let's get started. On the left-hand side of my screen up here where it says scene graph, okay, look down there at the gameplay transform group. Okay, this is primarily, actually exclusively, everything that we keep is going to be in this gameplay transform group. All right, everything else is going to go. Now, we're not going to keep every single thing. Some things are going to get chucked, okay? So the first thing on the list is animal loading triggers, okay? Now, the animal loading triggers is your animal dealer, and we are going to need that on future projects, so we're going to keep that. The next two being billboards and collectibles, I'm going to get rid of those because I never use those. All right, so they can go right away. Now, if you feel like you might want those, as far as like, your collectibles or anything like that, like you might want to use them, then by all means, like I said, keep anything that you feel like you might want to use. All right, so the next thing on the list is fields. There are 82 of them. I'm going to get rid of 81. So here we go. I'm going to select everything but the first one on the list, okay? Now, the reason that I'm keeping just one of them is it's going to be, well, one for reference, and also, before we go down that road, make sure that everything that you're deleting, like say if you think, well, I don't want to keep any fields, make sure you do keep the parent transform group out of all of these following items we're going to go through, okay? Because there are some attributes associated with it, and if you just delete it and try to recreate another transform group without that attribute, you're going to run into problems and it's not going to work for you. Okay, so now as far as the fields, like I said, the reason that I keep one of them, as I mentioned earlier, is no two projects are the same, okay? So you never know that maybe one of your upcoming projects, you may want to make your fields using the giants method, the default method, the blue square method, like I like to call it. Okay, so if you decide that that's the way you're going to do your fields, you have a field already that you can work with. Okay, you can just duplicate this and just keep on going. Okay, and then on top of that, if you ever need a reference to the attributes that are attached to each field, they're listed down here, so you do have a reference. Okay, so that's why I keep one of them. Now, if you decide that you want to use like field dimensions with bitmap or something like that, and do your fields the easy way, then by all means go ahead and get rid of what's in there. Alrighty, so moving on to the splines transform group, first thing we have is the traffic system. Okay, I do the same thing there. I'm going to keep the first one, and I'm going to get rid of everything else except for that first one. Okay, and again, the reason that I keep the first one is for reference. Okay, so you can see we have this max speed scale and a speed limit. Now, you don't even really need those. I mean, definitely use them, but it will work without it. Okay. But make sure that you put these in any spline that you create. So now what I would normally do is I would just either duplicate this spline, so I already have my attributes in it, or I would create a new one. Normally I would create a new one, and I would just, move these attributes over to the new blank spline, like a template spline. Okay. And then I just keep duplicating that, every time I need to lay down a new spline and my attributes are already attached to it. The other thing you might want to do, now I already deleted mine. Let me see if I can Control Z out of here so I can show you something, is to have a really quick look through the list. Okay. Because there are different attributes for some of these different splines. All right. And let me see if I can find one right here. Okay. So this one here has an attribute called is teleport. Now I've personally never used it, but I can almost guarantee you it has something to do with teleporting. All right. And then the next one, let me see if one of these over bridge, you know what? I don't see it. I don't have a whole lot of time to dig around looking for this. Oh yeah, this one here. Okay, so it has a max width. Okay, now this tutorial is not going to be about the traffic system, so I'm not really going to get too in depth about this, but this one's kind of neat. This basically is an attribute, and it's for the covered bridge. So if you have a larger vehicle or you're pulling a larger implement behind it, like a huge wide wagon, and it's too wide to comfortably fit through that covered bridge, it will actually choose to go around the bridge. All right. So, vice versa, if you have a smaller vehicle, it'll quickly gauge its own width as it's coming up to that bridge. And if it's small enough, it'll just drive over the bridge. All right. So that's why I recommend just taking a quick browse through these splines and getting rid of, getting yourself familiar with, some of the attributes that are in there. Okay. Now there's not too many different ones. That max width and the is teleport are the only two extra that I know of. All right. And then you have the max speed scale and the speed limit. Okay. So like I said, just get yourself familiar with them. All right. So like I said, let's keep the first one and delete the rest. Same with park cars. Park cars, I'm going to keep the first one. I'm going to delete everything below it. All right. Now the thing with park cars, there are no attributes attached to the park cars. Okay, so you don't have to worry too much about getting familiar, getting acquainted with the attributes. The park cars themselves are only an empty transform group. That's all it is. It's just an empty transform group. Now, in this situation, they happen to be locked. Okay, that's why it looks a little bit different than your normal transform group. But if you were to create just a normal transform group, throw it in there, assign it a location with an XYZ value, it would work just fine. Absolutely no problem at all. Okay, so like I said, I keep the first one because, I'll place that down somewhere when I'm ready. And then if, as I go, I'll just duplicate that one and keep duplicating and placing it down. Or I put out a video fairly recently about a park car creator, which makes things super easy and it speeds up the process immensely. So give that a look over if that's something you might be interested in. Okay. Alrighty, moving on. We got the pedestrian system is the next thing on the list. Again, keep the first one, delete the rest. Now, this is the same thing as the traffic system. I recommend, just taking a quick browse through the splines that are in there and, just having a look at the attributes to see what's what. Okay, and now AI is a little bit different. There's no attributes attached to these either, but I delete everything that's in here. Okay, and the reason that I delete everything and not keep the first one is because it's a spline. All right, and it's really hard sometimes to reuse splines depending on how they used it in the first place. Okay, if it's really long, it's got a lot of curves and stuff like that, it's just so much easier to just create a new spline and just go from there. Okay, so like I said, there's no attributes or anything, so you don't have to keep one as a reference. You just create a new spline, put it where you want it, and you're good to go. All right, next on the list, we have Vehicle Shop. Now, Vehicle Shop, you're definitely going to have a use for that on your new map, so we go ahead and keep that. Trigger markers, there should be 4 of them in there, okay? And those are just basically warning stripes, but they have slightly different configurations, so I keep all 4 of them. And if I decide somewhere down the road when I'm working on my project that I don't need the rest, then I just delete them, okay? But they're there if you need them. Now, map boundaries, okay? If you click on the transform group, the parent transform group itself, and you have a look around here, you can see how crazy theirs looks, okay? So we're not going to keep anything inside of this transform group because it's really not going to do us any good. All right, if you look at what they have there, it's very specific to the map itself. All right. And since our map is going to be, completely blank and flat, this really wouldn't work for us. So as part of this tutorial, I'm going to show you guys how to make your own boundaries and put them in there so you have them ready to go with your next, your next map project. Okay. Where did I leave off? Map ends. Okay. Same thing. I am going to keep the first one and I'm going to delete the rest. Okay, like this. Now the map ends, those are the little red X's as you're, kind of cruising down the road and you come up on a set of double red X's there. It's basically letting you know that if you continue any further, you're basically going to fall right off the edge of the map. So you might want to turn around while you have the chance. And again, I keep the first one because if I need any additional ones, I just duplicate that one. All right. Now, as far as the Elm Creek transform group, which is next on the list, I delete every single thing inside of there. Okay, I just chuck it all, get rid of it all, because like I said, with your new map project, you're going to be importing, the items that you want to import. You don't want to have all this clutter. It's hard to keep track of somebody else's clutter, basically. Okay, it's a lot easier as you're bringing in objects on your own. You can organize them the way you want to. You know exactly what you have, where it's at. So like I said, it's just easier to start fresh. All right, and I rename this transform group over to map just because I know that my next project's not going to be called Elm Creek. So I just rename that. Makes it a little bit easier for me. All right, and then last on the list we have cave, and I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that because we don't need that. Alrighty, so now we have a map. It's not so much flat and it's not really blank, but we are definitely going to get there, so we are making progress. Okay, so right now we have an item free map, which is pretty much prepped for what we're about to do next. Alright, so up here on the top of my toolbar, you see those up and down arrows up there? That's the terrain sculpt mode. I'm going to go ahead and click on that because we're going to start flattening our map right now. Alright, on the right hand side of my screen over here where you see attributes, I'll go down a little bit further. You see terrain editing. I'm going to move the radius of my brush. I'm going to move that to 500. And my opacity, hardness, and value, you can see how I have these all maxed out. If yours aren't, just max them all out because it's going to make this a whole lot easier for you. All right, so now your brush type here, I'm going to go down here to where it says RMB. That stands for right mouse button. So you have left mouse button, middle mouse button, and right mouse button. And I'm going to remap that to replace, okay? And replace, what that's going to do is allow us to basically set just a Y value, like a height that we designate. Okay, so we get to pick the number and tell it, okay, make everything this height. All right, and that height is going to be this replace value that you see here. Mine says 50. Okay, so your options are from 0 all the way, 0 being the lowest, all the way up to 255 being the highest. All right, now I don't recommend going as low as 0 because if you want to put in a lake or dig a ditch or make anything like that, where it requires digging down into the ground, maybe you have like a quarry or something you want to build, you're not going to be able to do it if you're already at 0. All right, so you want to go higher than 0. Anywhere from 30 to 50 generally would be good. Giants for the Elm Creek map, so their default is right around 80, 85, somewhere in there. Between 80 and 90 is where they have their default Y value for this. All right, so I'm going to choose 50 because that seems to work okay for me. And then your replace limit, just make sure that's set on none. And you can use your right mouse button from here and just paint over top of your map, just like you see me doing here. Okay, and that is setting the entire map. That's setting your new height to 50 meters. Okay, so once you're done with that, don't forget to go back to your right mouse button and put that back on subtract because that's going to goof you up when you want to do some more things after this. All right, and then here your opacity and hardness and stuff like that. You can move that back down now if you want to. We're going to, next on the list, we're going to scoot over here. It's that red pencil looking thing that you see there. That's the terrain detail texture paint mode. So basically we're going to be doing some painting. Again, on the right hand side of my screen where you see attributes, you want to go down a little bit here to where you see texture layer painting. And by the way, any one of these windows, if you don't see them, don't panic, because you don't have them. Just go up here to window in your toolbar, and here's all your windows here. So whatever window you're not seeing, you can make it visible by picking it out of this list. Okay, so again, on that texture layer where it says animal mud, I'm just going to go through there and I'm going to choose grass, and I'm going to paint over my entire map to give it a grass texture. Okay. This way I'm starting out all my textures. Basically, my entire map is the same texture when I start out. Alrighty, so from there, we're going to move to the very end of that toolbar to the terrain foliage paint mode thing that looks like a little plant there. All right, and again, over on the right-hand side of my screen, you want to look for, let's go down here a little bit, where it says foliage layer painting, okay? The first thing we have on that list says terrain detail. You can stay on that terrain detail, and basically what we're going to do is just hover over top of these fields that are on here, or, you know, if you have a different map, you know, you can, like the Alpine or French map, just hover over whatever markings you have there and just right click to delete them. Okay. From there, we're going to stay on this foliage layer, except we're going to change it from terrain detail to like meadow. And then I have a little bit of a wheat field you can see down there. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and right click over top of that, and that should get rid of that wheat field for me. Any minute now. There it goes. Okay, I don't know why things are moving a little bit slow for me today. Alrighty, so the last thing that we have left on this map of ours is some of the grass is still left over, bushes, weeds, all of our foliages basically are left. Okay, so now you have a decision to make. You got two different types of people here as far as your map is concerned. You have those that like to cover the entire thing in grass, right? Just paint grass on everything. And then as they lay down their roads and stuff like that, they just remove the grass in the areas that, you know, they decide that they want to put something, right, in the areas they want to work. And then you got the other guys that like to keep, you know, the whole thing blank, and then you can add the grass in later. All right. Now, so with Giants Editor 9, Giants Editor 9, basically, let's say, things got a whole lot easier. Now, you know, back in Giants Editor 8 and FS19, this was a much bigger deal because it wasn't as easy to put down your foliages and your ground textures and stuff like that, okay? And the reason for that is because this limit to texture did not exist back then, all right? So now with Giants Editor 9 and FS22, we do have that limit to texture, and things got so much easier, all right? So this isn't as big of a deal right now, you know, as it used to be, you know, whether or not to put grass down everywhere or not. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my right mouse button, and I'm going to go ahead and just delete all of that grass, all right, because I don't really need it. All right, things like I said are moving a little slow for me today. I'm not sure what's going on here, but it is what it is. Okay, here we go. All right, so I think I should have gotten at least the majority of it. You can come all the way down to your ground surface here now if you want, and have a look around and see if you missed anything. All right, see, yeah, I usually miss something almost every time, so from here, I'll just make my brush a little bit smaller, right? This big, huge brush isn't really doing me any favors this close to the ground. All right, and then you could just take a quick scroll through here, see if you see anything that stands out at you. It looks like it needs to be deleted, and everything looks good. All right, so at this point, you now have successfully created a flat blank map, okay? But that's just the map itself. We still have some more things we got to do. So, but at least that stage is complete, right? So you're one step closer. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to open up my gameplay transform group. Okay. Because I'm going to create these map boundaries. All right. And I'm going to show you how to do this. I'm going to show you the long way, actually. Normally, well, let me get into it and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So how to do this is you want to go up to create, go down to primitives, okay? And then you want to pick plane, just pick plane out of there, Control B, and it doesn't matter where you put it, just plunk it anywhere on your map. That does not matter. Okay, now on the right-hand side of my screen, all my attributes that you see here, all right, the easy way would be for me to tell you what values, just type this, 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 and that, and everything will fall into place, and you'll be good. All right, but I'm going to show you how to get this into place yourself and kind of use some deductive reasoning here and figure out what these values should be. All right, so you don't have to try to eyeball this thing up to the edge of your map, and, you know, it might be close, you know, it might not be. So, all right, so we're going to go to scale. All right, and we're going to go to scale. Might have these backwards. Let's go to scale X. We are going to make 500. and then the scale Z, which is our width here, okay, and we're going to make that 2048, which is basically the size of our, oops, that is not 2048. That is very, very big. 2048, okay, and that's the width of our map. All right, and I'm going to move that up a little bit just so it doesn't give me a seizure with, with all of that flashing going on down there. All right, so from here, like I said, just you can eyeball it. You don't really have to worry about getting too close. All right, but what you want to do is you want to stand this up, okay? Now, you don't really have to rotate it. You could just go up here to your X, your rotate X, right? And then just make that 90 degrees, okay? And that will stand it straight up. All right, I'm just trying to get you to do this the hard way, just so you get a feel for, you know, how your coordinates work and your rotations and stuff like that. I don't know how new you guys are to this, but I'm going to treat it as if, you know, nobody watching this video has any idea what they're doing. All right, so from here, I'm going to go to the translate X, and I'm going to move that to 1024. Okay, so you can see how that scooted us down to the end of the map down here. All right, so that has us right on the edge. All right, so the translate Y, you can keep that right where it's at. And basically what that is you don't have to worry about moving it up or moving it down or anything like that. It's at ground level right now, which is good enough. That suits our needs, okay? Translate Z, we're going to keep at 0. All right, and then everything else is okay. We don't have to do anything else from this point as far as moving it around, all right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over on the left-hand side before I forget, and I'm going to middle click on that plane, and I'm going to drag it up into my map boundaries. Okay, now highlight it. Make sure it stays highlighted because we're still going to work on this. All right, now over here on the right-hand side of my screen where it says attributes, scroll down a little bit and you'll see a checkbox here where it says LOD, rigid body and joint. I want you to check on rigid body. Now what that's going to do is it's going to give some substance to that plane. And what I mean by that is it's going to turn it into a solid object. All right, so this way, you know, as your tractor's cruising down the road, you know, he tries to drive off the edge of your map, he'll run into basically an invisible wall. And I know right now you're saying invisible. Well, yours really isn't invisible. You can probably watch a movie on that thing if you wanted to. We're going to take care of that right now. All right, so go over to shape where it says shape. All right, and look right down here where you see this whole line of checkboxes, okay? You'll see one that says non-renderable. Click on that, and now everything just turned invisible, and you're good to go. There's some more grass that I missed, so I can quickly get into my foliage mode and get rid of that. Oops. All right, great. So once you have that created, all right, everything's moved up into that transform group. Make sure that you keep that plane highlighted, all right? And I'm going to show you how to set this up in the rest of the all the other sides of your map, okay? Now from here, like I said, I'm not really going to give you the values just because, you know, it's kind of like cheating, right? I want you to be able to figure this out on your own. All right, so we're going to hit Control D, okay, to duplicate that. We're going to make a copy of that, all right? And make sure that duplicate is highlighted. And then we're going to hit our rotation here, which is this little red handle. And we're going to start to spin that around, all right? And then we're just going to sort of slide that over just roughly to where we, you know, think it should go, okay? Okay, now you should be able to pretty much figure out which values need to be which, okay? So your translate X could go back to 0, translate Y can stay the same, and translate Z, we're going to move to a negative 1024, okay? And we always use 1024 because coordinate-wise, those are the edges of your map. All right, so rotate X. I'm not sure how we got on 95 there, but we're going to keep that on 90. Not sure how that moved. Rotate Y can stay exactly where it's at, as well as rotate Z because we're all lined up. Everything looks really good right where it's at. Okay? And again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to hit Control D to duplicate. Again, you're going to spin that about 90 degrees. Now, if you feel comfortable enough, you can probably just start filling in right from where you're at here. So you can see that your rotate X should probably be at 180 degrees because that's the way you turned it, okay? And you can kind of slide that over to the edge. And now you can tell that your translate X needs to be at negative 1024. Okay. And then your translate Z goes back to 0. Alrighty, and there you go. You're all lined up there. So we have 3 done. We just we're going to do the same thing with this one. We're going to hit Control D. We're going to duplicate that. All right, give it a little bit of a spin like we did before. Like I said, when you get used to this, you'll be able to tell, you know, which values need to be which. You'll pretty much have them memorized after a while. But for now, if you just want to kind of move them roughly into their area, you can tell, you know, which coordinates need to get changed. All right, so we can tell that translate X needs to be 0. Translate Z needs to be at 1024. And then everything else can stay exactly the way it is. All right, now if we go up here and we click on our map boundaries, right, the parent transform group, we can have a quick look around and just see how everything looks and see if everything looks like it made it up okay. Looks like we're off a little bit on this last one here. Okay, what did I do differently on that one? My rotate X is off. I'm not sure how that keeps moving. Alrighty, so let's go back up to map boundaries and see what we got. Alrighty, and there you go. You have yourself a brand new set of map boundaries. Looking good. Alright, so for the most part, we are pretty much just about complete here. We only have a couple more steps, and you will have created your first completely flat blank map. Alrighty, so now that we have that out of the way, we have our boundaries all completed. We have just a couple more things left to do here on the toolbar on the top of my screen here, where you see that light blue pencil looking thing. That's the terrain info layer paint mode. You want to go ahead and click on that. Oh, look at those colors. Okay. All right, that is that's your farm layer. It's your info layer for your farms. Okay. A lot of people, I've got a whole lot of blank maps that I downloaded from wherever, and they always miss this step for some reason. So we're going to go ahead and take care of this. And that is one of the reasons that you want to create your own, you know, one of the reasons for creating your own flat, you know, your own blank map. This way, like I said, you know what you put into it, you know everything is correct, and you get familiar with the process, which is very important, okay? I'd say a large majority, now I'm speaking from my own experience, that a large majority of the maps that I find out there on the internet, they all have something wrong with them. All of the blanks, they just, you know, guys get, you know, they get a little bit better at this, and I think they get a little too eager, a little too ahead of themselves, and, you know, they like to put these things out there, and, you know, they're not quite at the level where they need to be. They overlook things, and that's what you end up with. You end up inheriting somebody else's problem. All right, so this way, do your own, you know, follow along with the video that you know you're going to get things done properly. All right, and then you'll have a perfectly good one to go. As a matter of fact, just recently, like I said, I very rarely download blanks from the internet anymore. Sometimes I do just to check them out. And I saw one come up recently, and so I say, hey, it looked pretty good, so why not? Let's just give it a shot. And I downloaded it, and of course I found a problem. All right, and that map itself, that particular map that I'm talking about, was downloaded from Giants Mod Hub. So, go figure, okay? All right, so like I said, get ourselves up here to that light blue pencil. Click on that, and that is our terrain info layer paint mode. On the right-hand side of my screen, we're going to scroll on down to where it says info layer painting, okay? Now, farmland should already be checked. All right, should already be selected, I'm sorry. Where it says info channels there, all those boxes, what I want you to do is just check every single one of those boxes, okay? Just check them all. All right, now I need to readjust my brush. I'm going to make the radius of my brush size, I'm going to move back up to 500. Okay, so now I'm just going to use my left click, all right, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to paint this entire map white. All right, now what you just did there is you made your entire map non-sellable, all right? So if you switch to a different channel here, okay, whoops, that is the wrong one. Okay, if you switch like Farmland 1, all right, it's all purple. So that's your whole map is not sellable. So now before you get to, you know, go crazy over that, because you don't want your whole map to be sellable or to be non-sellable. The way this works is as you come back and you start laying in, like, you know, your Farmland 1, 2, 3, 4, by the time you're done, the only thing you have left is your non-sellable land, and it makes things so much easier. It really, really does. And you do need to make sure that 100% of your map surface is covered, okay? I mean, not even a single pixel could be left. So this is an easy way to do it, to make sure that 100% of it is already covered, and then you're just basically adding to it from here, okay? And just trust me on this one, it's the easiest way to go. You, of course, can do it any way that you would like. All right, so back where it says info layers here, we're going to pick a new one out of our list. We're just going to keep working right down the list here. All right, we go to indoor mask. We're going to change the state to indoor. And this time we're going to use our right mouse button. Okay, we're going to go through here and we're just going to delete everything out of there. All right, next on the list, we have navigation collision. Now that one's a little bit different. You need to check on the info channel there where it says 0. Okay, and then we can use our right mouse button to delete. And that goes for every one of these ones after that, right? Just click on 0, and then you can delete everything that's inside of there. All right, like I said, I can't tell you how many of these that I've looked at, and I'm like, oh, great. You know, there was already like a bunch of stuff on the info layer. Not that it's that big of a deal, but they obviously forgot all about that. Okay, so just go through here and delete everything. Whoops, there we go. Like so, and one more left to do. Click the 0, right click to delete. There we go. Alrighty, so once you're done with that, you can get out of that mode, and that is it. Congratulations, you have just successfully completed your first flat blank map. All right, but that is just the map end of it. Okay, we have a couple more things left to do, so all right, just let's hold off on the celebrating for just a couple more minutes. The next part won't take long, I promise. All right, so from here, you can go ahead and save it if you want. You know, you can get yourself out of the editor if you want to do that. That's completely up to you. I'm going to do that. I'm going to get out of the editor. All right, so what you want to do is you want to go back and you want to find the mod map folder wherever you save this. So if you saved it into your save game, into the mods folder itself, you want to go ahead and find it, or if you left it in documents, myfs22 mods, either way, you want to get back to this file, okay, to that directory. All right, so once you find it, you want to go into that mod map, go into maps. All right, and once you're into that folder, you want to look for placeables.xml. That's going to be the first thing we open up here. Okay, so these are all your placeable items here. All right, you want to make sure you get rid of these because when you test in game or you try out your blank map for the very first time, a lot of people also forget about this. All of these placeables are going to pop up in the middle of your map, and you do not want that. Okay, so delete everything that's in there. Now, of course, you could go through the list, and if you see anything you might want to keep, you can. But I go ahead and just like I said, I always start from scratch. Now, that's going to be everything between these placeables, the tags that you see here, right? Placeables, and then you have this / placeables. All right, so everything in between there gets deleted, okay? And then you can go ahead and save that. Can hit Control-S, go back into that folder. And at the bottom of the list there, you want to open up your vehicles.xml. All right, now these are all the starting vehicles that you have when you start a new map or a new game. All right, now this is going to be completely up to you whether you want to keep these or not. I like to keep them only because sometimes maybe I want to either use some of these vehicles or all of them, you know, it depends. Or when I'm testing the map in-game, if I haven't made it as far as you know, my vehicles.xml and taking care of my starting vehicles, I will have some vehicles, you know, at my ready where I can, you know, use them to test my map. All right, so you can, you know, you can keep one or two if you want, you know, or you can delete them all or keep them all. It's completely up to you. Like I said, at some point during your map project, you're going to make your way in here and you are definitely going to redo this file at some point. All right, so I'm going to choose to keep mine, but I just wanted to let you know that's there, and that's one of those things that you might want to delete or keep. Completely up to you. And now that is it. You have successfully completed your first blank map. So congratulations to you on that one. Alrighty, and from here on, I'm gonna probably come out with another video soon. I'm not sure how long. For making a 4-kilometer map where you can scale up this 2-kilometer that you just made. All right, so we can turn that into a 4-kilometer, or then again a 16-kilometer. Alrighty, so keep an eye out for that. That's going to be coming up sometime in the future. And as always, if you found these videos helpful in any way, shape, or form, you know, please be kind and consider leaving a like and subscribe. It really helps me out, and it keeps me motivated to get this material out to you guys, okay? Alrighty, so that is it. Congratulations on your first blank flat map. With that being said, I am Bauer Brown, and I will see you on the next one.